Good morning, everybody. Oh, I have some kind of weird filter on this. I don't know how to get that off. Okay, here we go. Hey, everybody. Good morning to you. Let me get all my ducks in a row here. Finding everything. Good morning to all of you. We're going to be talking some more about this Immanuel Journaling today. So I'm curious, how many of you journal regularly? And if you do, pay no attention to all the screaming in the background. If you do, how do you know what to journal about? Do you have like a formula of some sort? Is it a gratitude journal? I'm just curious, what is it that you do? Or is it like you have like a formula, question prompts, writing just your feelings from the day? What is it? So I'm curious, just put in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. My name is Amy Miller, and I have been on a spiritual journey since I was 10 years old. And I've just discovered one of the most powerful tools that I've ever come across in my life for connecting with God on a deeply spiritual level. And at the beginning of this month, we talked about how to experience true change that comes from the inside out. And I'm gonna put in the comments below the link to that video, because we're really focusing on our 3 life essentials. This bottom portion here, this foundation of our wellness. You know, we can focus all day long till the cows come home, really, on eating whole foods and resting, managing our stress. We can focus on exercising, and we can blow it out of the water when it comes to these things. We can clean up what's coming in our homes and in our bodies with our toxins, and we can be working with our doctors, and we can know how to take care of ourselves with over-the-counter things or with our essential oils. But if we don't get to the root, the spiritual part of our wellness, it's just Band-Aids we're putting on. And Jesus is the only one who brings true and lasting change. And so today, joining us, thank you for joining on the recording or the replay. You're going to want to stick around, because I'm going to share some amazing stories from this experience with Immanuel Journaling. Today, we're going to be free from noise, free from confusion, free from solitude, free to listen, free to know God, and free to be known by God. I don't know, put in the comments if any of those freedoms resonate with you. I know they do with me. And I want to be known by God, and I want to know God. And so if you joined me last week, let me know if you've already tried this. How many of you have tried Immanuel Journaling? So last week, we talked about what Immanuel Journaling is and some unique things about it that really set it apart, that makes it very different from any other type of journaling that you do. And so, but if you didn't already download the journaling worksheet from last week, let me know in the comments. And so last week we talked about what is Immanuel Journaling, what makes it unique. And just to kind of briefly recap, this is a type of writing exercises or practice that kind of helps us explore our life events, especially like our interior life, our thoughts, our feelings, even our body sensations, with our good God, Immanuel, which means God with us. And this simple process really helps to become more aware of God's compassionate presence in the painful, but also in those mundane moments of life. And taking time, slowing down enough to pause and give thanks, and then listening for God's response. And the 3 parts that really make it unique is there's an interactive gratitude piece. Then you move into some thought impressions, and then reading your journal entry aloud to someone or someone's if you're in a group. So I'm curious, did any of you try out this type of journaling? over this past week. Just share in the comments below, even if you're watching on the replay or the recording. I'd love to hear back from you if any of you tried that. And I want us to go ahead and kind of dig in and start this today. Okay, so hopefully you have your printed Immanuel Journaling outline. If you don't, you can put in the comments below, or you can actually go print it out for free on our website. Just go to 3 Life Essentials actually just go to 3 Life Essentials, click on the resources tab, and you'll see it right there in the drop down, the Immanuel search, and you can Immanuel Journaling worksheet, and you can print it out right there. So here's how we're going to start this. We're going to walk through now the whole process. If you're doing this yourself, can take up to maybe 25, 30, 45 minutes even. Sometimes it may take less time than that. We're not going to take that much time today, but I am going to walk you through the process in kind of abbreviated, and then I'm going to share with you some experiences that we've had with this. So we're going to start with gratitude from me to God. So I want you to just take a moment, quiet and pause, maybe take some deep breaths. If you want to bring your oils into this situation, some good ones to choose are maybe your frankincense or your sandalwood. Those are both really great in helping to connect your brain to our creator. And so I'm going to do that as well, but just take some deep breaths and really kind of quiet your mind and think about, prayerfully ask God to help you remember a moment of gratitude. And you can either, as it comes to you, you can either write it down or draw it, kind of like a thank you letter to God. You may even want to include details on how it makes you feel. And again, we're going to do this in an abbreviated version so that we can get through this content this morning. But as you do this alone, it may take a little bit longer. And then you're going to pause after you've written out that thing. Do you have that thing in your mind? That thing, that person, that experience that really brings you gratitude? Once you've written down your Thanksgiving, which we talked about last week, is so important to come before God with thanksgiving. Then pause for a moment to really reflect on what you wrote. And next, I want you to ask God what he would say to you about that. And you can begin writing or drawing if that feels more comfortable to you. But don't filter your thoughts. Don't second guess your thoughts about that. Just start writing and allow the Spirit of God to lead you. It's like God is writing a letter to you. Okay. And so, so you may even want to write, my dear child. So write it in the perspective that God would say it to us. And by doing this, we learn to feel appreciation in our bodies. We learn to sustain gratitude for 5 minutes, which is huge when you're thinking about brain science, and the ability to expand your brain. And developing a gratitude habit, maybe doing this several times, each day, or even throughout the day, developing a habit with that. Okay, so once you've done that interactive gratitude time, you're going to move into really what we kind of call thought rhyming or thought expressions. And this is really a way to provide you with comfort and with hope and shalom, which is peace. And the first step in that is, how do you see me, God? Asking God how he sees you and really writing that from God's perspective. Because if God truly is Immanuel, who's with us, he's watching us with love. He's describing what he observes about you. So even start writing what God's observing about you, around you, maybe even how you're sitting, maybe your body movements, your sensations, maybe some responses that other people may not notice on the outside. And if this is resonating with you and you want to share this with someone, go ahead and click the share button and share this with someone else that you really want to be able to experience fullness in their spirit today as well. Okay, so the next part, once you talk about how God is seeing you, then I want you to move in, God, how do you hear me? And really just take time to listen and begin writing or drawing. Really just about how God how God is hearing you, like maybe what you're thinking internally, or what you're experiencing. And so I'm looking here, trying to find here so I can share this as well, because I know so many of my friends in my life also could benefit from this. So I'm going to see if I can find the share button here. So you look for your share button and I'm going to look for my share button too. And so once you've written those things down, then you're going to move to step 3, where you're kind of talking about, God, how do you understand me? Okay. How do you understand me? Begin writing and asking God how God understands just how big this is for you. Just really take time to pause and reflect on that. And maybe it's saying, God is saying, I understand just how big this is for you. And, you know, it's validation. It's putting into words God's understanding of how important something is to us. And so maybe taking the time to do that as well. And then the last thing you're going to want to do is share. So, God, how are you glad to be with me? How are you glad to be with me? You know, God is so glad. He says that he wants to be with us, right? And so sharing how God is glad to be with you and what he might saying, no matter what you're feeling, he's glad to be with you. Okay. And then the last part is, what do you want to say to me and give to me? Write down what God might be saying to you, how he may understand what you're going through and he can do something about what you're going through. So what is God wanting to give you during this time? You know, is he saying, come away with me? Is he saying, I'll strengthen you? What is God saying to you during this time? So you're going to take the time to write or draw out those steps. And again, if you don't already have your Immanuel Journaling worksheet, you can go to our website, 3 Life Essentials, click on the resources tab, and you can download it there for free to be able to kind of walk you through this process. And then the last thing you're going to do is you're going to share this. You're going to share this aloud with someone or someone's in a group. Now, I want to share with you a story about the very first time that Jim and I experienced Immanuel Journaling. It was a couple of months ago. And we, like I said, we had never done this before. We were at a gathering of about 50 other families. And we were in a session, and we were told to get in groups of 3. And so Jim and I were sitting next to each other, and there was another woman who was sitting by herself, and she came to join us. So it was the 3 of us, Jim and myself, and another woman that we did not know. We introduced ourselves, and we started this process. And so I sat there for a few minutes, and I remember thinking, okay, I'm supposed to be thinking about something that I'm grateful for right now. And I didn't know at the time why, but God, I just could not get it off my mind that I wanted to be thankful for Jim, my husband, my best friend. That's all I could think of. I tried to actually, for some reason, I thought that just seems so simple. So I felt like I should be thinking of something else that I should be grateful for God, but I couldn't let it go. He just wouldn't let it go for me. So I started writing about being so grateful and thankful for my husband, Jim, and his friendship. And so we're writing, and I'm beginning to have tears in my eyes as I'm just overcome with gratefulness for him. And the woman next to me that I just met, she's writing, and tears are coming down her face as well. And Jim is across from me, and he is writing. And so we go through each one of those steps that I just walked you through about what's God's response to those things. And in this particular instance, we didn't have time to complete all of the steps, so we actually only got through part of it. So I say that to encourage you that if you don't get through all the steps, it still can be an amazing experience. And so we finished up and we all looked at each other and we knew it was time to share. And she started and I will call her, I'll call her Sue. So Sue began to share about her experience and what she was grateful for. And she started sharing about how she was so grateful for her daughter, and she could see herself hugging her, and she's in heaven, she said. And she looked at Jim and I, knew we didn't really know her or know her story or anything. So she said, I feel like I should share with you a backstory that my daughter was killed in a car accident 2 years ago at the age of 8. And she begins to keep on reading, and I can't really even hear exactly what she's saying because tears are coming down my face, and I'm thinking, oh my, did she really say that she lost a child in a car accident? And this was a mom that looked to be my age, maybe even younger than me. And I remember thinking, wow, the weight of that experience. And I remember her reading how grateful she was to see her daughter again, to hug her. I remember her sharing about God's response to that he was filling her with grace and goodness, and how he was walking alongside her during this grief. And she finishes sharing and she looks up at Jim and I remember thinking, wow, now how do we share? How do I share? How do I share after that? And I remember thinking in my finite mind, all I'm sharing is how I'm grateful about my husband. And so I thought, well, here I go anyway. And this is actually my journal entry from that day, 2 months ago. I said, Heavenly Father, there are so many things to be thankful to you for, but now I want to say thank you for the gift, the tangible gift you gave me when you sent my husband. It makes me truly believe you heard all of those years I longed for a friend who understood me, and all those years I searched for an earthly friend. You are my Abba Father who cares for your child's deepest desires. And at this point, tears are streaming down my face. I cannot stop crying. And those of you who know me, I'm not very much of a crier, but I could not stop crying. And then I said, oh child, how I wanted to so much, this was God's response to me, how I wanted so much to give you this gift, but the timing had to be right. I had so many things to teach you along the way. You needed to seek me by praying for your future husband over and over. I needed to prepare you to receive a friend that I knew you needed. I see you, Amy. I see all of you, and I still love you so deeply you cannot comprehend it. I fully understand your need for a deep friendship. Now remember, I was not able to complete the whole thing of the Immanuel Journaling worksheet, and so that is all I had written. And so I looked up, and the woman next to me who had just shared about losing her daughter, Sue, she said, wow, that is such an encouragement to me that you wrote that. She said, how long have the two of you been married? And I said, we've been married 12 years. And she said, wow, the way you wrote that, you would have thought you were newlyweds. And she said, I can't tell you how much of an encouragement that is to me, because since the accident, what you don't understand is in the car accident, my husband was driving my 3 children to school. And that was the car accident that killed my daughter. And he was driving. And even though it wasn't his fault, he's still dealing with the trauma of that. And it has put a strain on our relationship and our marriage. And what you just spoke was such an encouragement to me, because I feel like God was speaking to me and saying that friendship is going to be restored, just like that in my own marriage. Wow, right? Who knew that what I was writing was going to be, guys, you goes, I'm not that good. I didn't know her. I didn't know her story. But it gets better. So now it's Jim's turn to read. And of course, we now have no idea what he's written. And he starts to read, and I'll share with you what he wrote. He said, I didn't write this exactly like the format, but this is what I felt like I was supposed to write down. He said, the struggle you're going through is real, but I have not forgotten you. You feel like you're drowning. You feel like this is going to consume you. Before it gets better, it's going to get worse. But do not fear. I have called you out. You will come out of this and walk into wide open green pastures, and you will experience my peace. Now, you guys, this is what Jim was writing for his time and his time listening to God. And he said the whole time that he was writing, all he could hear was losing a child, losing a child, losing a child. And he thought that as he was writing, that God was talking to him about losing his own child. And it wasn't until Sue shared her story with us that Jim realized what this has been written for and who had this been written for. He said, I feel like I need to pray this over you, Sue. And so as all of us have tears in our eyes, he leans over to her and says, and praise God. God is telling you that the struggle that you're going through is real, and he's not forgotten you. And even though you feel like you're drowning, you feel like this is going to consume you. And before it gets better, it's actually going to get worse. But do not fear, because I've called you out, and you will come out of this and walk into wide open green pastures, and you're going to experience my peace. And so, wow, you guys, Jim and I, we're not that good. This was God communicating to us and even for another person. And this is why it is so powerful to speak it out loud. So I'm about to sign off today, and I want you guys to join me back next week. I want to hear about your experiences with Immanuel Journaling. Take the time to print that journal out this week and do that with someone and read it out loud to someone or someone's, and bring your stories. I want to hear your stories. Share them with me, please. I'm begging you, share them with me. Share them with me on Instagram, on Facebook. Next week, we're going to talk about what is your attachment style and why does it matter? And you'll see how this is all going to tie into what all we're talking about, where we're going to be free from the past, free from unhealthy relationships, free to grow, free to connect, and free to be secure. And this is going to help you in your spirit grow in your relationship with God. So I thank you guys for joining us. We're going to see you guys next week. Bye-bye, everybody.